I'm Richard Hill, and I want to talk to you right now about what I'm calling the anxiety timeline technique of trying to deal with the nature of the way anxiety rises up in some people. And you might feel this experience, I know I have sometimes. Now, I've done another video which is talking about anxiety and the immediate effects of anxiety and how we can get rid of those immediate effects and get you back in control of the here and now. So please look that one up and have a look. But I want to now deal with the other aspect of anxiety, and that is, we were saying before, that anxiety is the fear and the concern about what isn't or what might be. And it can be based on what's happened in the past and that you're worried about that will happen again. It can also be based on what's happening in the future, about that you will do this and you'll be criticized, you'll be ridiculed, you'll have all these negative things happen to you. Now, it's not totally unreasonable that you consider these facts of being ridiculed, of being put down, of being socially embarrassed, and that these social embarrassments are very concerning and very worrying for you. The winner-loser world theory, which I talked about in one of the other talks when we were talking about the nature of procrastination. We're talking about also the nature of negative limiting beliefs and self-sabotaging behaviour. The winner-loser world is this difficulty that we have when we have a world that values us from the outside. You live up to expectations or you're a loser. And if you're a loser, you're bad. And you're wrong and you're at fault. And one of the reasons and one of the things that drives me crazy in this world is that a really good word, which is responsible, to be responsible, has been stolen from us. And it's been stolen from us as, instead of being what it's meant to be, which is response-able. That means you have the wisdom, you have the education, you have the calmness of spirit, you have the engaged interpersonal nature to be able to have someone do something to you and respond to it. And if you listen to the on limiting beliefs, where we talk about the curiosity approach, that when someone does something, if you respond with a curiosity, with, wow, that's interesting, I wonder what I can create with this interaction, then things can be wonderful. And that response-able is something that we learn through life. And it's a fabulous thing. But that's not the way we use it in our culture. The way we use it in our culture is, if you're responsible, you're wrong, you're at fault, you're to blame, and the person who is wrong, at fault, and to blame pays. They pay something. There's some responsibility. So I don't want to be wrong. I don't want to be blamed. I don't want to be at fault. I sure as hell don't want to be responsible. Being responsible is a terrible problem. And this is one of the reasons why we get so anxious. So it's not unreasonable that you get anxious. And it's not unreasonable that you worry. And it's not unreasonable that the bad things that happened to you in the past, you fear may happen to you in the future. And that even if bad things haven't happened to you in the past, that you fear they will happen in the future. I think that is a truth about this winner-loser world that I talk about. And you can see that, I've written a book about it and there's a bunch of things. But that being said, we still can't let it overpower us. We can't let it dominate us. We can't let it take away our capacity to function happily and successfully and in our own sense of personal challenge. So one of the things that happens in anxiety is that we muck up the timeline. But remember how I was just saying that we sort of got, there we are now, but then there's the past and there's the future. Remember how I was saying that you are now, at this point, worried that something that happened in the past is going to happen again. And you're also looking forward to the future and saying, I'm worried that what I'm doing now, or something, no matter what I do now, that something bad's going to happen to me in the future. And so I get anxious and worried about it. So you're telling yourself here, and you're showing yourself, that our brain can move in time. We can do it in our brains. Now we can use that. We can use that capacity to shift ourselves in time to try and make this point, the now, actually be the now, and stop this blurring of being in the two paths, in the past or in the future. Okay, here's the process to do. We can imagine into a future that may go badly. Okay, fair enough. But if we can imagine into a future that may go badly, we can imagine a future beyond that future. So while you're sitting here thinking, oh, you know, in 2 days' time, this thing's going to be assessed and something terrible's going to happen. I bet you something terrible. I think something. I don't know whatever it is. Just because there's no sense to it because you're not there yet. Okay. Now, just imagine yourself going into the future beyond that experience. Now, take yourself into the future beyond that experience, where you're okay. Okay. So there's now. You've had this thing where you've had to put in your report or do your exam or you know, have the wedding or give your public speech or whatever it is that's causing you the anxiety, and take yourself forward to another time further than that where everything is okay and you're fine. And it must be because you've got further into the future. But that's it, just magic wand, I'm fine. Now look back now at this intermediate. Here's now, here's the future. So let's do it on the board here. I'm doing it off the side, you probably didn't see it on the camera. So let's have a look at this future one. So here's now, there's the fearful future, and there's the happy future. So now, at this point, everything's gone well. You're there in the positive future. Now think back and imagine what went right. Visualize what happened, how it worked out, how you survived, how maybe it was trouble. Maybe you gave your public speech and it was very nerve-wracking, but in the end, everything was okay because you're okay now. You're okay here, in this imagined future. And you must be okay if you made it to that future. Okay? So look back. What did I do in this part of, from this future position? Imagine, what did I do that made it work out okay? What was I, how did I manage? How did I get it to go okay? Now, when you've imagined that, all the positive things and the beneficial things and the way you made it work, send those thoughts back to you now here in the present and say, now I know what I have to do. Now I know what I can do to make this work. So then you turn around and you look into your future, and when you get there, when you actually get there and you make it your present, you do the things that you imagined. There's an extraordinary story of Viktor Frankl, who was a psychotherapist, and he was a Jew in the wartime. And he was in the concentration camps, and he was all the time in the concentration camps writing in his own head, because they didn't have any written materials, but he was writing and memorizing in his head his book, which eventually became an extraordinary story, and millions of people have read it. And he imagined himself in the future delivering the speech, being at a public meeting, at an academic meeting or a public meeting, delivering the message from his book. And he did this. That's how he kept himself going to write the book. Anyway, he went through a bunch of things. He survived, but there was one day when they were freezing cold. They were made to march out to do some work. The Germans were pushing them. He fell to the ground. He was sick. It was like he thought, oh, this is it. I'm going to die. And as he was lying there, and the guard was, prodding him and poking him with the gun and trying to make, and he thought, my God, I'm going to die here. He thought to himself, no, but I'm going to be delivering my speech. So he sent himself into the future. I'm going to be delivering my speech, and there I am. And if I'm going to be delivering that speech, and if I'm going to be okay, then I must survive this situation I'm in. So he actually used the future to imagine himself surviving, and so he did what he needed to do in order to survive in the present. And that's a skill you can use. In reverse, you look at now and you go back to your negative aspect in the past, and you very, very clearly look at yourself. Look at it happening to you. Look at yourself younger. Look at yourself smaller. Really place yourself and see yourself as not being who you are now. And that then look from that past saying, if I can just survive, if I can work this, then I can become wonderful and successful like this person here in the future. And see the success that you're achieving now, the fact that you've survived, the fact that you've managed. It doesn't matter how successful in the sense of prizes and gongs and money and all those things. But you are alive and you are able and you are capable, and that you are doing what you need to do in life. And go, wow, even though I suffered that, I am able now to do what I can do now and be someone who is continuing on with life, continuing on with experience. And then you just have to start saying, so I am going to take that to me into the future. This is what happened to me in the past. This is who I am now. And I'm going to take that survivor. I'm going to take that strong person. I'm going to take those capacities and capabilities into the future. And okay, I've got some things coming up. Okay, I've got a big speech coming up. Okay, I've got to get a big ceremony that I've got to do. Okay, I've got a exam to do. But if I've made it to now, then why can't I make it then? And the answer is, I'm curious. I wonder what I'll do. I wonder what strengths. I wonder what new capabilities. Because I'm not the same as I was back then. I'm not the same as I was back in my past. I'm now more. And it's not about the things that drag you down. It's the things that lift you up. It's the things that make you realize you can. That are those things that you need to focus on. And your anxiety focuses on what can drag you down. And it's not positive thinking necessarily that takes you up. It's curiosity. It's the curiosity of, these are the things that I've learnt that make me stronger. I wonder what sort of amazing thing I will create in my future, even in the face of difficulty. So that's how we can use the time. We can take ourselves beyond the drama and look back and imagine how we coped, and imagine how we managed, because in the far future we're okay. Then we can look back into the past and go, yes, but I was smaller, I was younger, I was less educated, I was less emotionally capable, I was less understood, I was less loved. There were lots of things that you were less or not of. Whereas now, you've added, you're more. And remember those things. Not the ones that might go wrong, but the ones that you could, with curiosity and interest, take forward. The timeline of anxiety. Change it. Bring yourself into who you are now and realize that you are who you are now because of who you were. And regardless of what happens in the future. I hope for some of you that that's been of some assistance. Thank you. Take care. I'm Richard Hill. Goodbye.